Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Connecting the Dots with your host, me, Vince White, where comics, pop culture, and pure speculation collide. We connect the dots up in here, peeps. So before we get started, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps us move up in the algorithm. And, it justifies me taking some time out to make, videos like this that hopefully you enjoy. This is episode 2. Yeah, episode 2. And in this episode, I chose to take a look back at a storyline that took place during the death of Superman. And it's about Superman and his resurrection after he left this earth. And all these imposters arose. I think this was the time where Steel debuted. A new Superboy, the Eradicator, emerged. They were temporarily acting as the new Superman until Superman martyred by the hands of Doomsday. Finally, somehow, towards the end of the series, he's resurrected, and everyone is surprised. And, this is a big boom in the comic book market at that time. The death of Superman was huge. That issue alone sold in the millions. People collected it. They speculated on it. It was big news. It was all over the world news. I mean, this is a iconic character that met his death finally, and it was something to be talked about. And DC played it out for a while, but not bringing him back right away. They were serious about it. And finally, he did come back. But because he had been deceased for such a long time, and the fact that his abilities run off of solar energy, he was resurrected somehow without powers. He didn't have any powers because he had been unalived for so long, and his connection to the sun was not there. So he had no solar radiation in his cells. He had no super abilities whatsoever. So they gave him this recovery suit. It was black and silver. It actually looked kind of cool. Superman was resurrected with a mullet as well. He had a mullet. He had long hair. And the recovery suit was helping him absorb more solar energy, I guess. And it's sort of like a supercharger. It's just sort of re-energize him over time. But in this delicate phase, he had to use these weapons. He used guns. He used rifles and guns. I'm going to explore that period because I think this was a missed opportunity for DC, because he overcame this lack of abilities fairly quickly, and he was Superman again. I think that if they would have ran with this new archetype for a while, we would have had a brand new Man of Steel, brand new Man of Tomorrow built for today. So this is episode 2. Superman should have stuck to his guns. All right, now that I got that preamble out of the way, let's dive into it, okay? I'm not completely sure how the original series explained the weapons or how they worked, but I can tell you how I would do this. I would make these weapons some type of unique Kryptonian technology that utilized Soup's genetic material housed inside the weapons. The weapons would absorb the solar energy, run it through the genetic material inside the gun, and that would then manipulate one or two or all of his power sets that would be emitted by the gun as a beam. Okay? All right, so you're like, Vince, what are you talking about? All right, so first off, I would give him a big rifle. One of those huge, completely unnecessary, super sci-fi cable-like rifles, that looks like it's about 5 stories tall and about 3 miles long. He just had this huge hulking gun. When he fired that, it would basically replicate his optic eye beams, his red optic eye beams. So that would be his weapon. I can imagine it having several modes, probably 3 off the top of my head. The first would be a rapid fire. He would be firing volleys of red eye beam energy. The second mode would be a continuous beam of red solar energy, his eye beams. Like when he just lets those suckers go and burns into steel and cuts it or something like that. He could switch that rifle to a beam mode, hit someone with a continuous blast of energy, or use it to cut through something. And lastly, I would give it like a sniper mode, a long rifle mode, where he could hit some button, the hilt would extend, the barrel would extend, complete with the scope, allowing him to have a long distance Hail Mary sniping capability. Superman, he's getting away. Superman hits the button. It converts to a sniper. He looks through, and he fires a shot. That red blast will come out, hit the guy in the back of the head. Oh, and he falls out. Okay, all right. So you're like, Vince, okay. This sounds like it's just kind of crazy. No, just hold on. I haven't taken you to Crazyville yet. Okay, that's just the first stop. I imagine these weapons being broken down into 4 different types. So let's get them out of the way first. So a rifle, which mimics his I-beams. A wind gauntlet, mimic his super breath and freezing breath. A gravity belt, which would mimic his ability to fly. And lastly, a grenade belt. These grenades would basically be like frost grenade and or like a white phosphorus grenade that mimics his I-beam. So the grenades are basically freeze breath and I-beam. The grenades, they're sort of a delayed attack. So if he's standing in front of someone, there's a child next to him that he needs to save, he could drop one of the freeze grenades and then it doesn't go off immediately, which gives him time to leap and grab the child, jaunt off to safety. Then the grenade explodes in front of the enemy. Boom. With this arsenal, a rifle, a wind gauntlet, a gravity belt, and clutch grenades, I think this Superman would be really relatable and interesting, exciting, and something I would definitely read. And he would still be the leader of the JLA. And this is why episode 2 is entitled Superman Should Have Stuck to His Guns. So let's explore it. I wouldn't make this version of Superman like a gun-toting Punisher or Cable or some cold-hearted vigilante either. I would make him, I think what is often is missed with Superman is the fact that he's a farmer at heart. And this is the key element that I think a lot of writers either forget or do not recognize. And this is why it seems that Superman seems to be a project that's hard to write for. But once you understand that he is truly a farmer, and this is how he perceives the world, farmers are practical. They see the job that needs to get done, and they do it. And just because the tractor is broken, it doesn't mean that the field doesn't need tilling. This is when he just breaks out the plow and continues to do it by hand. The job still needs to get done. And Superman, being a practical person from his upbringing on the farm, just because he doesn't have powers anymore doesn't mean the world doesn't need saving. He still needs to do what he needs to do. So these weapons wouldn't be weapons in his mind. They're tools, just like a farmer. They're tools and they're a means to an end. So with that aspect of the character, you would see he's totally not some gun-toting vigilante, but more of a prescient, ever-vigil, practical commander, an everyday man that has to assess a situation, develop a strategy, and then implement it. Which I think a lot of people don't realize how smart Superman can be when he applies his brain. Because not only is he super in strength, speed, breath, he actually has super thoughts. He comes from a society that is far advanced. The fact that his guns would use genetic material to replicate his abilities, I think makes perfect sense because it's being more and more established through the cinema and even in the comics that the Kryptonians use a semi-organic technology. You find out that the Kryptonians are sort of obsessed about their genetic offspring and lineage. So him having Kryptonian technology that can take DNA and replicate abilities wouldn't be too far-fetched. This archetype as well, I think also works best on an older Superman as well. Somewhere not quite Kingdom Come, just a little bit younger, but not too far off either. Time and age and coming back from the dead has caught up to him, and so it takes longer for him to regenerate, and probably this time who knows if it will ever come back. So an older Superman, depowered, that uses a weapons array to mimic the powers that came to him naturally, with a farmer's mind, the patience and practicality, and the ability to plan like farmers do for seasons, changing weather, have contingency plans. If something goes wrong with the soil, they have spare lots. I think you would find out that he has the ability to prepare just as much as Batman. Maybe not with the same motivation where everything needs to be controlled. He would just have the sense of precaution and knowing that there's always another shoe that can drop and to be prepared for it. I'm not saying that he has every contingency plan laid out like Bruce does. He wouldn't be that obsessed, because I think he's a more balanced person than Bruce. Isn't there? Look, if Bruce Wayne existed today, he would be down so many rabbit holes on TikTok and Twitter. He'd be all up in the back alleys of Reddit. Bruce wouldn't get any sleep. He would basically have bags under his eyes, just all on the dark web. He'd have the Epstein files. But let's get back to the Superman and his guns. I think this actually makes him really exciting. Imagine this, okay? Superman's facing a foe, let's say Mongrel, right? And Mongrel knows he's depowered, and he's fought Superman to his end. His weapons are depleted. He knows that he's depleted as well, and has Superman on his knees. This is his chance to gloat more like a cerebral villain. And while he's gloating, he doesn't pay attention to Superman. Superman's on his knees, but maybe he has a pistol. And while Mongrel is monologuing, maybe turning around and talking, now I finally have the upper hand and I get to destroy, the Man of Steel. Superman throws his pistol up into the air. Just a quick flick, right? It soars into the atmosphere, breaks cloud cover, and the light of day touches the pistol. It spins for a few seconds and it begins to descend down, falls right back down into Superman's hand, and he catches it. Pow, and it's charged. Mongrel turns around and says, "Where'd you get that from? You know that thing is empty." He pulls it. Pow, pow, 2 quick shots to his eyes. And Mongrel is down. Superman says, "Hey, what I learned when training a wild steer is never turn your back on it." And he's that practical. They make Superman have more practical statements like that. His character would ring through. Once you take the loftiness of him flying around, you just bring him down to a Superman, just a man like you and I. He's just stronger, faster, hear better, see better. I think you begin to relate to him a lot more. And in this version, I would still let him keep his strength. He would still be strong and durable. And I would chalk that up to his Kryptonian physicality, because his people come from a planet that just has a much heavier gravity. So that's sort of innate. It's cooked into the package. What he's missing is his eye beams, his cold breath, his super breath, and maybe his super speed and his ability to fly. But he, being durable and strong, you got that. And his ability to leap. Leaping over buildings and ripping bank safes off the wall, I don't think that would be an issue for him. He just doesn't have his projectile abilities and his ability to fly. Those are now repurposed into his genetic weaponry. I think this makes him so freaking cool. It's totally dope. I mean, it just makes him so much cooler. He'd have an earpiece for communications. Superman again, I'm in right now. Can you see through the walls? It's not really. My x-ray vision isn't what it used to be, but let me see. So dope. And he pulls out the gun, checks it, see how charged it is. I got 50%. Dude, it makes for more precarious situations. You don't know how it's going to work out. It makes him a lot more exciting. Here's 2 other things I would do. Horses have the ability to create antibodies for snake venom. They often get bit by snakes sometimes, and they create antibodies, venom antibodies, so they can become immune to snake venom. So what if he and Bruce expand the ranch a little bit and take on quarter horses? These are pretty strong horses, big, strong horses. And he and Bruce develop a way to feed them hay that's laced with microfibers of kryptonite. As the horses ingest this, they actually build a kryptonite antibody. And Clark takes this from their blood and creates a serum that allows him to microdose antibodies, so that over time he becomes immune or less affected by kryptonite. Because he's practical now. He has to think practically. He understands his limits, so he starts to look for ways to handle that. I think that would be something really interesting to do. And here's one more thing about my Superman that should stick to his guns. What if the lanterns actually help make a special lantern that charges his weapons with solar energy? You know how the lanterns have that big lantern they put their ring up to and it recharges by brightest day, by darkest night? He won't, trust me, Superman won't say, by Kryptonian's might. No, nothing like that. But I would imagine it almost like a weapons locker, complete with the lantern logo symbol on the front. He opens the double doors, like a tall standing weapons locker. And inside it, you can see his weapons, his rifle, his belt, his gauntlet floating. And behind it's like a miniature green sun construct illuminating his weapons with solar energy. I think this all would make Superman very interesting. If they kept him like this for a while, he would be a brand new icon for their company, and he would be very relatable, and the stories would be so freaking interesting. That's why I believe Superman should have stuck to his guns. Hey, thank you guys for listening again. Once again, this is Vince White with Connecting the Dots. And if you like how I kind of speculate and create stories and what if thems, maybe you would enjoy some of my writing as well. I do a line of comics starting off with my main hero, Willpower, and his title, The Legend of Willpower. You can find my books at DEPOWERED.com. That is ThePowerverse.com, all one word. Yeah, check me out there. And if you like what you've heard and haven't liked or subscribed yet, do that as well. And if you got questions or comments, or if you have an idea of what Superman could be like depowered, put it in the comments. I read them all, and I'm pretty sure I will probably make future episodes based off of what you all say. So until next time, guys, remember, be powerful and keep on connecting the dots.